What's up everybody? So despite a potential ban list coming, we are here with an updated Cyber Dragon build. No variants this time, just Cyber Dragons. Obviously one OG, no dupe, because that's the way we do it here. But first, make sure you subscribe if you want a lot more great content. We're working on things all the time and our plate is full. But while you're at it, go and check out our friends at Insane YGO. I'll have a link down below for amazing Cyber Dragon content. I really appreciated the shout out from him, so I'm trying to return the favor, although I'm not as good with computers as he is. But he's got replays, spicy deck lists, and a deck building video that I highly recommend watching. Hopefully we can work together on a video soon, and that would be really fun, and I think you guys would all enjoy it. But now on to the deck profile. 1 OG, so why are we playing 1 OG and no Machine Dupe? Common misunderstanding is thinking that you brick on dupe with no targets, but that's really not it. It's mid-game, late game, you don't have him in your deck anymore, so your dupes are dead. There are ways to keep it live, but it does definitely happen where you're bricking on it. It's opening OG and dupe when you don't have a target. It's opening multiples of OG. I've also found one of two things tend to usually happen in a competitive scene. One, dupe doesn't resolve, whether they like bounce your target, negate it, negate the dupe itself, or two, you pretty much force your hand to bait out all their negates just to resolve your dupe, and your board ends up being lackluster in the end because of it. Whereas if you would have just played without the dupe, you could actually do a lot with it. We can make multiple disruptions, whether that's Infinity, Overflow, Hand Trap, something along those lines, or OTK with Verde, Rampage, and Seeger or Infinity. We can do either of those without Machine Dupe very easily. Huge point, guys, though, is that's 5 extra slots in your deck, allowing you to very consistently open at least 1, 2, possibly even 3 disruption cards. Why is that big? Why is that important? Because we only need 2 cards to OTK. So if we can open 2 or 3 disruptions, your opponent won't be able to do a whole lot. Then you'll have, well, 3, 4 cards sometimes, and you only need 2 to OTK. So you do the math on that, guys. So yeah, it allows easier board breaking. I've OTK'd more since dropping those cards, and I've learned how to play the deck so much better. It's not for everyone, and not everyone does see success with it. There's definitely a learning curve, and it took a while to get used to. But every time I go back to a build playing Machine Dupe, I do like test hands, and I get so frustrated and like want to give up on them because it's just so inconsistent. Moving forward though, 3 Cyber Dragon core. It's our really only true starter in the deck. Emergency can get to our core too, but it's our normal summon. It searches all of our cards. It's really one of the more broken archetype searchers in the game, because I mean, you think about it, you could, if you're playing dupe it to get out your Cyber Dragons. It searches any of your spell or traps in the archetype, which coincidentally a couple of those spells search out all the monsters. So essentially you get access to all of your cards through core. And you can also banish it from the graveyard to special summon any Cyber Dragon monster out of the deck. And say you summon it and your opponent negates the summon, like a Solemn Judgment, you can banish it and use that effect. You can only use 1 per turn, but if the summon's negated, it never attempts to search. If it never attempts to search, you can use the graveyard effect. So really good there. One of our best extenders in the deck, so I always recommend playing 3, is hers. We have, well, it's a level 1, different level of Overflow. It helps get our core back, it helps get our Naxter back from the graveyard. It really just does so much. It combos off with Galaxy Soldier really nicely. And you can just form your chain blocking like Soldier and hers, depending which way you want to do it. It doesn't really come up too often, but if it's special summoned, it can become a level 5 and you're locked into machines. Like I said, I rarely find myself ever using that, but it has come up once in a while, and it's just a good thing to remember. Keep in mind, if you're searching from the deck when he goes to the graveyard, you cannot grab anything but the original Cyber Dragon, because they are not Cyber Dragon in deck, just on field and engrave. But remember, that's if he goes to the sent to the graveyard, so that's XZ material, field, hand, you know, pretty much anything, as long as he's sent to the graveyard, deck, whatever. Like I said, one of the better extenders in the deck. Bringing us on to Naxter. So basically a searchable monster reborn. There's also a body on board. I've seen a lot of people misunderstanding his effects. You're only locked into machines if you revive a card from the graveyard, not if you use his effect to special summon himself. He's another level 1 for overflow, so between hers and Naxter, you can only banish one of them off overflow, but it's kind of nice having that versatility that you don't need to, that you can choose which one you would like to get rid of and banish. But really, really good. Revives basically anything you would need in our deck, you know, your OG, your Infinity, your Nova, your Rampage, your Seeger. Just really, really good. Playing the one copy of Fear. So I've seen a lot of people dropping this, but Fear, he chain blocks, so you like add Emancipator. A lot of the time with Emergency, I'll search out Fear, especially if I already have my core in hand, because they usually end with like Appaloosa, Guardian, Boral Savage, stuff like that, like a whole bunch of monster negates, 1 or 2 Omni negates, but they're not going to negate Emergency because you can just discard a card and get it back. And then you normal your core, and you just say Chainlink 1 core, Chainlink 2 Fear. Now they have to negate Fear. They can't negate your core, and if they choose not to, because it's just a body on board, a lot of the time they won't waste it. You get your search off your core, and then you can link off into like your Almirage, and then contact fuse Appaloosa, Almirage, and Fear, and you have a 3600 beater just like that. And say, like, depending what you search with the rest of your hand too, then you just gotta play through. Obviously less negates because you already cleared out the Appaloosa and you have a beater. You could even go right to the battle phase and attack over like Guardian and get another negate off the board. Then you just gotta worry about Savage or whatever. Not really sure what their build would have at that point. Kind of depends how you open to slow them down also. But really, really good that way. It's a level 4 for overflow, so that gives us the potential to pop 4 cards off the trap, which is just ridiculous. And it's a free body on board for Seeger, for Verde Anaconda. It just really, really helps in a lot of ways, and I highly recommend playing it. Another great extender in the deck right there with Hertz is the Honorary Cyber Dragon Soldier, Galaxy Soldier, level 5 light machine, searches itself, summons itself, gets cybers to the grave. We can search it off Repair Plant. Really, really good, and I have been absolutely loving 3 because I want to open it all the time, and yeah, I want to open it all the time. I mean, and Repair Plant, you can shuffle 1 back. Like say you have 3 Cyber Dragons in the graveyard, and you already used 2 of them, so you only have 1 in deck. You can activate Repair Plant, use both effects, targeting 1 in grave, then you search the 3rd one from the deck, this one gets shuffled back, special summon him, and then you search out the one you just shuffled back anyway, and then you can go into another rank 5 play. So I really, really do like the 3 Galaxy Soldiers. Onto a bunch of our disruption cards now, because we are playing tons of them, and that's basically it though. 13 cards for our Cyber Engine, because, well, that's what you need. It works really, really well. It's consistent, it doesn't clog up. Really don't have bricking issues at all. Obviously anything can happen, and sometimes luck is just not on your side, but a searchable Kaiju is so strong, and when we have a built-in mechanic that can board wipe the Kaiju, like, that just makes it even more unfair. So I really like Kaiju because if I don't have to search it and can open it, I've considered even playing 3, but that starts to get a little cloggy. But if you can open him, it just really helps, like, so much, because then you just dismantle your opponent's board, you get rid of a card right there. Like I said, you can contact fuse it away, things like that. So I really like Jizukiru at 2. 1 Pankratops, the Dino Wrestler, is back. He's here to stay for now at least. Focusing on just being able to break people's boards, and a 2600 beater that special summons itself kinda sounds pretty good to me. Helps play around like If you get Scythed, it's a 2600 beater still. If you if they have like there can be only one or some type of floodgate, you can clear it out that way, or just put a different type of monster on board. And say you have both of them in your hand, as long as they have 2 monsters, special summon your Cyber Dragon, then your Pankratops, problem solved. On to our hand traps then. In my opinion, probably the best hand trap in the game. A lot of decks don't play it because most decks want to go first, and that highly conflicts with Gamma unless you cater your plays towards getting out Lambda, but they usually just have better plays to make more negates and things like that. But any blind second deck, I feel like Gamma is the best hand trap to main. Yeah, negating and destroying is huge. Just really, really huge, I guess. Going on forward. Triple Ash Blossom, it's generic and it hits every deck. And the whole point is trying to open like between our Kaiju, Pankratops, Gamma, Ash, the next 2 hand traps, and a few of our spell cards. The whole point is to slow them down to where we can take control on our turn. And Ash might not stop the top decks right now, but it slows them down, and that's really all we need to do to capitalize on them and take control of the game. Good versus basically all decks, not quite, but for the most part, and just absolutely amazing versus some. Decks like Adamantipator, if you don't have another hand trap, it's a little bit lackluster unless they open awkward or their excavations are just really, really bad. But Synchro Eldritch, you can hit it and just basically force them to just play Eldritch at that point, but you take out the Synchro part of the deck, so that's always nice. And then decks like Salamangreat seeing a lot more play right now. It's just really, really good. You can versus a Dinos, they might have their protection from Miscellaneous Source, but Lithogism, I can't even say its name, I always have problems with that, but he's a worm type, not a dinosaur type, so you can usually prevent VFD from hitting the board because of Nibiru, which definitely makes it easier on your turn if you only have to play through the Book of Moon. And our final hand trap, so this one's not really a disruption card, but it helps us see all of our disruption cards. It helps us fix our hand, it helps us put a driver back or an OG back into the deck. If you didn't think about it already, it's Phantasme. Everybody's linking, even the best control deck in the game with Eldritch links now because Helka Fibrax, everyone's doing it. Really nothing else to say. Why wouldn't you want to be able to draw 2 and put 1 back? And really the only card it kind of conflicts with would be your Gamma. But if your opponent, you know, assuming you Gamma them first, if you draw a Gamma off your Phantasme, yeah, that can kind of suck. But if you don't have anything else, like you want to keep everything in your hand, just put your Gamma back. Otherwise, you can always keep Gamma, and that's 1 monster towards our Lambda already, which means you can Gamma them on your turn when you're building your board and doing that, which means you're going to get it to your Omega. You're going to get 2 other cards on your turn because of that. He also offers the targeting protection, which is huge because I believe Moonlit Chill targets, but Valor and Impermanence are seeing a lot of play right now, so he can protect your core from either one of those, which is always, once again, always very, very nice. That is it for our monsters. Finally, I believe there's, I think 29 monsters total, something like that. Spell cards. So 3 Emergency because it can search out any of our Cyber monsters, so that's pretty good. And 2 Repair Plant because it searches out our Kaiju and our Galaxy Soldier. More often than not, you're going to search Galaxy Soldier at the first one and Kaiju with the second one. Certain situations will call for searching out your Kaiju early, but 5 Searchers is, well, pretty good. You know, most decks, if they have access to that, they would be playing them. Little bit of restriction on Repair Plant needing a Cyber Engrave, which is the one reason we're not playing more copies. So, not playing Rev System and not playing Cyberload Fusion. This is really kind of awkward for me, and I'm going to try and justify it here for you guys. So, test hands, things I kept like bricking on and when my hands weren't really playable, Cyberload was in the hand all the time. And it's a really, really good card, don't get me wrong. But for what I'm going for in this build, it's not needed. I don't need Cyberload into Rampage or Twin or anything to push for game and win. I have my Verde for my win condition with Overload. I have my other ways to play and do good with the deck. And Rev System, I was never searching it, period. Like, never. Unless I searched out everything else already, I wasn't searching it. So why not play a card that can just reborn anything from their grave or mine that doesn't have to be Cyber Dragon? And in that case, I can go into my generic links like my Verde, and then I can dump my Overload Fusion and potentially swing the game in my favor that way. So that's why I went with Reborn over Rev System. And with Anaconda, if you're only going to play one fusion spell, play Overload. I absolutely think one Cyberload, one Overload possibly is correct and is very, very good. Just for what I guess I was going for with this build, and after testing, it came down to cutting that card. Yeah, so you'll see why here in a second. One Mind Control, because kind of like Pankratops, it's just so good even as a one-of. It forces a negate, or you take one of the monsters, plain and simple. And then the next card, another card that went to one Instant Fusion. So why Instant Fusion? If they don't negate it and it resolves, I mean, obviously they can negate the monster's effects too, but Instant Fusion is essentially 2 non-destruction removals, because you go into your Restrict and equip one of their monsters, and then you link it off for Anima, and assuming they have a monster in zone 2 or 4, you can equip that to Anima then, and you just got 2 non-destruction removals off of one card that you only had to pay 1,000 life points for, which, let's be real here, that is absolutely nothing. So I do really like Instant Fusion there. We're actually not playing Panzer Dragon because I have no issues getting to Infinity, so there's no point in clogging up my extra deck for a Saki one-of. But the bright side, and why can we play things like 2 Kaiju, 1 Pankratops, Mind Control, Instant Fusion, like all these one-ups? Well, Fantasmic, he really helps allow you to be flexible in your deck building and to do things, because he lets you rearrange your hand as you're playing, so that's always really nice there. Sorry if it sounds like I'm running out of breath, guys. It's because, well, I am. 2 more cards in the deck. We're at 40 cards total. The only trap card we're playing is Overflow. Card is just broken. Between Core, Emergency, and Overflow, in my opinion, they're probably 3 of the best archetype cards at what they do in the game, which kind of makes it funny how Cyber Dragons are so overlooked. But Overflow, there's no targeting, there's no cost, so if it's negated, nothing happens, and you potentially pop 4 cards, so that's just really ridiculous. A few other things to note: Hurt does not target. People think it does, but it doesn't. And so how do we play without Machine Dupe? Like, what do you do? Well, you have your starter, your core, and if you can open like core and Hurt, core and soldier, core and emergency, core and repair, basically core in any one of those cards, or your emergency and any one of these cards, you can OTK your opponent. So that's a lot of 2-card combos right there, and you're going to have 4 more cards to slow them down, to break their board, and to continue pushing on your turn if they start to disrupt you. Yeah, I guess there's really not much more to say about it. That's just kind of how you do it, because you would make like your All Mirage, go into and make your Nova revive a card, go into Infinity, you can then absorb a monster to clear it, and then the Cyber Dragon you revived off Nova and All Mirage into your Verde, and then Verde effect dump Overload Fusion to get out your Rampage. So brings us on to the extra deck. I'm going to try and go a little bit faster for you guys because this is running a lot longer than I expected it to be. 1 Mega Fleet, because a lot of the top decks right now don't really care Salamangreat is probably one where you would want multiples, but like Adamancipator, one's enough. Eldritch, one is enough. Sky Striker now apparently two. Well, versus them, Fortress is just as good. 2 Kaijus, so we're playing double Fortress. I'd say had someone play, he said he didn't realize Cyber Dragons even played him anymore, so I thought that was kind of odd because he tagged out Halcofibrax for, I forgot what it was, but it was Machine, so then, I probably didn't have to let him because he said the summon was okay of my card, and then I was like, oh, contact, and he's like, oh, I meant to say, and then he tagged out Halcofibrax, and that's like, okay, well, contact Cyber Dragon and your Machine, and he just wasn't ready for it. 1 fusion spell, so we only need 1 Rampage. Then obviously the Restrict, like we kind of touched on earlier. Xyz, we're playing Nova, Infinity, and Pleiades. Pleiades is nice because certain decks, if you bounce their normal summon or like mid combo, it just really messes with them. Depending how you open, you could potentially get both of them out. It's just very, very unlikely in this build, but it is possible. Otherwise, like I said, recycling your soldiers, and then you can go into another rank 5 later in the game. If you happen to use Gamma on your turn, which usually would be if they try to negate Emergency, or you banish Core from the graveyard, and they negate that effect. And then we have Omega, so you can potentially rip a card from your opponent's hand, or just have the 2800 beater on your field. 1 Almirage, because it really helps to make Repair playing alive with Core. And like I said, easy 3600 beater, Mega Fleet. 1 Relinquished Anima, because, well, we have multiple level 1s, and it just helps with non-destruction removal. Seeger and Rampage. Seeger and Verde Anaconda for our OTKs. Lambda, because we're playing Psy-Frames, making like Infinity Lambdas super easy. Cyber Dragon and Almirage into Lambda, kind of like how you'd make your Verde for the OTK. Going first, you would just make Lambda if you have Gamma in your hand. And the final card, this card helps so much versus Eldritch, Shizbania, because they can't float their cards if they get banished. That's really it for the most part. You just banish their cards and float, or prevent them from floating. Made me really not want to cut Cyberload Fusion, but I'm yet to regret it, so I'm going to keep playing until I do, and then maybe one day I will put Cyberload back in the deck. Now, I don't usually show my side decks because depending on your region, where you're playing, how competitive it is, everything like that, it's kind of up in the air. But since we're all playing online, it's relatively standard, so I am going to show it here. Almost main decked it. Lancia is really good. If it was a little better versus Eldritch, or not Eldritch, Adamancipator, I probably would main it. It hits like Invoke, it hits Shaddoll. The 2 main decks getting big support in, what is it? Eternity Code? Actually 3 even, because Mermails, they can, I believe some of the cards that they rip from your hand, they banish. And so I think that would be a slight hit to them. But Dinos and Orcas die to Lancia. And Eldritch, they commit to their board, and they can't float their effects during the end phase then because Lancia. So if it was a little bit better versus Adamancipator, I would main it, but it's really that good. 3 Cosmics because, well, Eldritch floats. We want to banish stuff instead of destroying it. Combo decks, we want to say no to. Big blowout with evenly matched, and once again, cards float, Eldritch floats, evenly matches one of the best cards against them. And sometimes you'll get forced to go first. Not that you need a card, because like I said, Hand Trap Infinity Overflow is usually enough for most decks if you can time things out and they didn't just open absolutely crazy. But DDG is so good. Nobody wants their stuff banished unless you're like Thunder Dragon, so DDG just really good in the side. Hopefully you guys stuck around, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and can't wait till next time, guys. Take care.